morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unc and Market Monk. Good morning, P. How was your week?
It was good. Kind of just stuck to some pivots on some option trading. MSTR kind of topped out at a line I have and traded off that a bit. Had puts on deck, and that went down 22%. I think when I sold out of that one. But big one for me was quantum computing. I I had a kind of a busy start to the week with the day job, but I put a note in there that need to read quantum again, and then they all took off all week. So um, had a pretty decent chunk there, um, and some of the AI stuff too. But yeah, overall, really good week for me. The 3-2 market thing still very much in play. I think people get lulled to sleep a bit. You get the Nasdaq kind of grinds up all day for 0.5% or whatever, and people just assume it's going to continue, and then get news overnight, and it's down 1.5%. Can't really chase puts down there, so it puts traders in a pretty tough spot.
Nice. uh, Pretty mixed week over here. I mean, when you have a portfolio and you get a week like that, it's hard to kind of cover the ground from one thing to another. But um,
Yeah, yeah,
from a day trading standpoint, I'm not horrible. Um, a, a little bit more scaling in than I have lately into things. Nuclear was good to end the week, though. Probably the clear winner for me, if we're just talking about a trade last week, was Piton. That worked out quite well
yeah.
and cleared out the rest of the TMC I had. Man, that went a long way. Um, I think we started around a dollar 60, 70, 80 on that thing. We ended up at 450. So good trade there. And then I had a little bit of the Qs, nothing crazy on the Qs, just some piece of what I had the first time. Um, it's kind of why you hang out in those bigger thesis names. So um, yeah, not horrible, not great. Um, and more interested in what went on, than worrying about not hitting the home runs last week. Is I think I said last week in voice. I can find you 10 percenters most weeks, and um, but trying to find the 100 percenter every week is not really going to happen. And last week it was a hard week to just find the 10%. So um, I, I I'm interested in talking about that kind of stuff a little bit more than individual plays this week, just because it's
Right.
it's where people get ruined at. It's like, well, this has been working. Why are we changing? And you kind of got to be faster on them pivots. You can't be the as I always say, the big ship turning around, or as you put it, the oxens from the 12th century.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, and you get. I mean, one of the safest way to trade. And I will bring up an individual name, for this in these kind of uncertain conditions, is to just have had something at one of our really good pivots, and no matter how much you had of it, whatever, like you have some left, and you can just see, is this gonna project here and come back to some of these pivots, or is it just gonna punch through? Snow punched through to 200 from entries, in the 130s, or anything under 143 was where I was adding. Um, you're in great shape there. Kind of flew through that zone. Then we did the reread, and it and it took off. And not all SaaS did that. I mean, it's been kind of miss, but the hits have been pretty good. I mean, Trade Desk, and then this one, and then hanging out in a couple others. But that holding through, I know is going to be this kind of 3-2 market is a lot easier when I have an entry and a stop that will be in profit if it does hit, if you do get the disaster overnight. It's the worst possible time to start over every day. never a good time
Oh,
to do
sure,
that. But I
sure,
just
sure.
think right now that's just kills you because I mean, for one thing, the best move of the day happens overnight, and you really don't know which direction that's going to be. You could just go long every day and spike the football, but then disappear whenever it nukes 2% overnight, and then all that incremental progress is all wiped out in one day. So that's I think happening in a lot of people. To me, I think I've always been on sectors, but I think right now I think sectors are more important
Sure.
than they've ever been. And for me, my big idea this whole year was the energy trade, and a lot of that's been the uranium and nuclear stuff. Some of it's been solar, the little rallies in solar, and then solar got smacked way down. You're trading the rallies in an uptrend there. Oil, I think you're still loading over time. But what the energy trade thing also means is that a lot of the Mag 7 is not going to be very good, and that was a big part of our idea too. Like if I'm going to be in the energy trade and gold's going to have this great year, it's not likely that Apple's going to rip 50% this year. It's just not going to happen. So, um, and given that that puts a big weight on the market overall for Mag 7 to just sort of stagnate or drift, and so it's not easy mode as far as that goes.
Your engine with a bad carburetor.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I had a note to just mention, news and sectors, and it's kind of a three-piece note, but you're seeing it in general, that news isn't necessarily holding, and then your sector lift um, will form a higher low. So it's there's not a lot of what do you want to call it? A lot of time to digest or anticipate moves right now, because it kind of happens. You get the pop and fade, so to speak, and you end up in a higher
Yeah.
low most of the time. And the best ones of those right now, sector wide. I mean, unfortunately, it's if the president says anything about anything, that sector's just going to move. Um,
Yeah.
but they're not. I mean, the farther we get away here, the more they're in that pop and fade. Not to just oversimplify it, but I haven't really seen a sector hold up, and I always try to look for the leading indicator or a good example to have a north star, so to speak. And the stock right now, I think that's ahead of that curve, or that's just played everything I'm talking about well. It was Tesla. I mean, it kind of ran
Yeah.
in. It ran in with Trump. I mean, if you, I'll pull it up. But if it ran in with just Trump getting elected, and him being a part of that, and then we had a big pullback, and then we've kind of had pop and fade then, but we're stuck inside that range, which I think is a big point you're
Yeah.
going to see on a lot of stocks. We're going to be stuck inside of ranges for a while. Um, so if it didn't have a huge drop, that's a good way to say what you always say, with buying the more expensive contract. You're not really, you're not helping yourself buying the
Yeah.
$50 contract. Well, if the stock only dropped 2% and it only has, 3 or 4% to the last high, that's not a big range. You want to find something that fell a little more and has if a stock was, let's say, 200, its last high was 250, and it's $120, um, that's where you want to be paying attention, because it is a little safer. There is just going to be some natural relief, especially if that stock's on a 200 SMA on the weekly chart. That could be a thing. I don't know. Um, but you're going to see that market, and it's not necessarily a consolidating market. It's not even going to be out of the downtrend, in my opinion, yet that we've had to start the year. Um, and you're going to have to be not picky, but you're going to have to put some thought into your trades and why you're trading and what it is, over the next few weeks, in my opinion. And that should lead you to what you see in the 3-2 market. Because, I mean, that's basically what it is for me. It's just,
Yeah.
um, it's going to move slower, and we kind of seen that last week with the whole week being somewhat down.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. And on Tesla, I mean, one of the things I think is that him getting out of Doge and sort of back to 24/7 Tesla Twitter, kind of like running the business side of things. I think that helps
Hmm.
those stocks, and it's going to help Tesla form its higher low somewhere. I'm curious about this 280 pivot that I have, like if that does anything, or if we, fall the way back down. But I kind of, I mean, Tesla 500, that's going to be relevant at some point. So, but when I say that, I mean, if I think Tesla's going to $500, I don't know if it's going to 220 first. I mean, that's not a great trade. It's just it's fine if you're kind of in investor mode, and you don't care as much about that. It's like buying Apple under $200. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
there aren't really good option trades in Apple right now. I mean, if there are, they're to the downside. I don't really trade Apple that way. You can, but the so if you're going to add Apple and you're just going to say like, well, I'm an investor here, and Apple over time just going to keep going up, but could 180, 60 dip, something like that happen. But if you're just buying a few shares here and there, um, who cares? But if you're trying to buy $3 weeklies on Apple, it's just not a good idea. And I feel the same way about most of the larger stocks. I see people like do something like alert Netflix puts, um, because the market's been down. I mean, okay, but a bad day on Netflix typically is going to be 1.5, 2%. Then if 1.2% of that move happens in overnight, you're trading less than a 1% range on those contracts,
Sure.
and because of some macro thesis you have about the market dropping, and I'll just come back to this. I mean, the thing that's wreaking havoc with all the pop and fade stuff is it's the bond market. There's more than the 10-year at play with this. It's just to me the one that's the easiest to follow because I don't really want to get too thick in the weeds and that. But yeah, with this moving up at 4.5% and having these spikes like this, um, gains are not going to hold. And even you open oversold, pop up, kind of find some equilibrium, and then typically it kind of bleeds out through the day. So it's not a great time to trade weekly options. There are times when it is, but this is just not the moment for that, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'd be foreign language to me.
Yeah, sure.
It just that, yeah, and I think that's another point I kind of wanted to make. I mean, if you go just even back 2 weeks ago, not to this session, the other session, we lined up on like 11 out of 15 names. Like
Yeah,
I don't know, most people, the people that aren't in the group out here, they don't know, but we kind of like individually go through some names and pull from that list, and then whatever lines up at the end we keep. And we had 11 is a lot. And this last week, we've struggled to have 7. And that right
yeah,
there, I mean, that's just a change in market conditions. And even the length, I mean, we got out of there in an hour in the first one, and the second one was like an hour and 20. It took longer. So, I mean, you can just kind of see
yep,
that it's harder to find right now. And even a little thing like that, I totally take into consideration when it's easy mode for, what we see as opposed to when, we're not on the same page. That's also a indicator. That's my fear and greed indicator, the one I actually use. And you seen
yeah,
it.
yeah.
You kind of seen it last week. Not that it was overly alarming, but and then 3-2 market. I said it. I'll love it, and ask it to stay forever if it's going to be 2% down and 15% up. But when it starts to
Yeah.
get, 2-3% down and 4% up, it's not tradable. It's really not tradable. And you have to again, back to my point with Teslas, you have to just find the ones that have that huge range. So when they do start to move, you're hanging out there as opposed to consolidating or playing back to under a level or something like that.
Um, yeah, yeah, and for me too, it's a good time to if you get the overnight win on something, call it good. There's it's like I had the deck puts it was like $450 for those contracts. That was what I sold it for, and bought them for 50. Two of them. I'll just call it good. I mean, like I don't,
Mm.
because you're just gonna likely dwindle.
Well, that's a good
You're not
conversation. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah, you're just you're probably not going to end the day with a lot more than what you started with, and you're going to spend 3 hours looking at charts and scalping 1%. And it's a plus. It was a Friday. I mean, it's just don't let the greed and win rate dictate that I'm going to go ahead and this is house money. I'm going to pile it back in. I just think you just walk away lately.
Yeah, no, and that's a good. I got Nvidia up right now, and um, you know, I searched the 13416 and posted it just so people knew how old it was, that it wasn't something new. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't. I mean, I if you bought 120s, we're a little late. If you got all the way down to them, sub 90s, and you bottom tick this thing, I don't know how you're not taking some profit right now.
Yeah.
And it has not. I mean, I don't know how you don't take some of that, just because of the market conditions. Um, you're probably going to get another entry. I mean, if you're bottom ticked it, okay, you can make an argument that those aren't coming back. I get it, but you're still giving up like a 40 or 50% trade that happened in a month and a half, and that just to me is kind of
Yeah.
foolish in the current conditions. I mean, that's a big part of it. In the current conditions, I wouldn't dump it all. I wouldn't say that, especially if you have the bottom ones. But you have to take some profit after a move like that, and that's a hard one right now. But I just think that's the environment we're in.
It is, and when I look at Nvidia, the um, likely news to come out, partnerships and things, but they're the big dog in the end on that partnership, right? So they're not gonna spending money on it, and instead of benefiting from it, if the China news is probably going to be things like offering cheaper chips over there to get rid of to get around some of the costs. Yeah, it's not in and of itself. I don't see a path, and I certainly don't see a path and flow to
To
hold
get
for 200.
or just to give up
Um,
a 50% trade. I mean,
yeah,
it's not that good. I mean, and we talked, and you brought it up this session. Like we kind of talked snow when it got to the level, and it just looked like we should hang out in it. And and you kind of, I mean, there will be some checks and balances, but for the most part, um, to it, not through it, P. I mean, that's just where we are, right? And I feel like we're gonna slow down. That's the part of the 3-2 market that when we first got into it, people watched the first couple scenes. It was real fast, like an action movie, and now we're into the dialogue part of the the program, and it's slowing down. And um, it does that in the summer market anyway. But I just see that as the first step or the next step in the process for us is a slower moving market. Just paint back to paint dry for a little bit.
yeah, and the to it not through it. This is the textbook example. The MSTR, you had
Yeah,
Bitcoin punching through, punching to all time high, but you still were just wicking over this 420.35.
is that day chart?
That's a day chart,
Yeah,
and then on the option side, I'm trading this on like a 15-minute mostly, and yeah, so on the pullbacks, I needed enough room to get back to
exactly.
420,
You need the
but
range. Yep.
yeah, but kept they kept getting out there, and I had said, you have to hedge this thing. And so if you went into this last pullback, that like the Thursday move, and said, "Oh, we're going to try to retest this," and you were hedged, 2 calls and a put, given the degree to which it fell, you still came out green on that, and significantly so, even if you didn't hold for the whole move down. But I posted earlier, I don't know how people trade this without these pivots. You could maybe put one in the middle somewhere here. I tend not to. It's just the way the option strikes operate. But yeah, you can keep hitting that. But if you had just held this and trying to hold for 500, you're in a pretty frustrating spot right now. Even if you got it at 334, you still gave up a hell of a move here. Come right back to
Oh, if it's an option, you're
right back.
getting time decayed too, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. So options. It's a bit of a
Well, I
disaster. You could.
apologize to everyone real quick on Professor and his degenerate trade. But if you really would like to learn this degenerate trade, just come in our room, maybe hang out a month, ask a couple questions. He'll walk you through it. But he just likes to latch on to these things and trade them for years for some reason. I don't know why. It might be because it works, but and it's you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Apologize to you guys out there though.
But I mean, when we're in conditions like this, like I sort of kind of fortify, for lack of a better term, but I go back to the most familiar.
Sure.
Like regardless of, even if the sector isn't that great at the moment, and crypto wasn't a month ago or so, but I still, it's like, okay, it's not time to be breaking new ground anywhere.
Sure.
I'm going to grab my 3 names, my John Deere, UNH,
Lily.
MSTR,
There's
Lily,
Lily out there.
and I'm gonna stick to those for a minute, because if we're just gonna get the tighter range and the consolidation and stuff like that, I have the pivots where I can look for kind of the anomaly to that,
Hmm.
the big flush in the morning to a
Well,
pivot.
that's last week we talked about, and I kind of like pointed it out as a negative, like it's a super negative to me. But um, we talked about an option contract gapping up or down and yada yada yada, and then the thesis that came out of that after that conversation was yes, you're trading a different price range in that option. What was $200 option is now an $80 option or a $500-600 option. So you don't have that price range to fall back on. The things that you fall back on kind of dictate um, whether to take the trade or not. The price is irrelevant of the option. So, and I don't think a lot of people get that. I think that's the next, and I'll kick you there right now. But that's the next point in your because you bring it up every quarter at least. You're not protecting yourself with the $50 contract. Some
Yeah.
things are 500. Well, the next step of that is you're also not helping yourself, just having the idea that I only trade, 50 or $100 contracts, because the price doesn't really matter. It's the setup on the other things that you identify that are just going to make the option premiums move.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think where, I mean, with option trading, the people who say, well, I'm going to do the same thing every day. I'm going to trade SPY the first 30 minutes every day. Um, First 30 minutes every day is not always good for trading. And even if, so like, if you do that, and you get a day where SPY just takes off or flushes, and you catch that, you get a fill. It's like, okay, I'm in this, and SPY's going down. Um, Experience will dictate that you get out of that quickly. So you then don't get enough big wins to make up for days you lose, or the days you kind of break even, and then you just get into this account reset mentality where you're just constantly blowing up and reloading it every month, and it's just over and over again. And the I guess, well, I'll ask you, like, switching to SPY. Why do you why do you think people do that? And
Oh, that's
conditions
easy.
like this in particular, why does that get people to? It's like, okay, I'm off individual names, I'm off
Hmm.
swing trading. I'm going to switch to SPY, trade zero DTE,
Uh,
and somehow I'll do better at that.
um, First thing I want to say, just to bump off what you said back there, is I got a 30-minute rule, and it's not to trade when the market opens.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I legit
Yeah.
have a
Right. Right.
rule. I legit have a rule that says don't trade the first 30 minutes in certain parameters. Um, so Spy, I think it's a a little bit of a pie, but they're looking for that familiarity that they don't understand they really need, or how to get in individual names, like we just talked about how you do, and how to kind of,
Yeah.
lack of better terms, revert back to safety. So they go to Spy because, I mean, it's a 10 out of 10 name on the street. They don't have to worry about, uh, when they pick a name out of the hat, you don't got to go worry about, the Greeks and the option volume. Spy's going to have it. It's active.
Right.
There's a card game there. When I started trading, it was Spy or Tesla. Just everyone wanted to trade Tesla options. Um,
Yeah.
so they go there for the safety, and they also go there because of the idea that Spy doesn't go down, right? It's always going to win through time.
Mm.
So they figure, the good days have to outweigh the bad days if Spy is just going to go up historically forever. So they think they're in a winning setup, like they've not necessarily found a glitch in the game, but that they're just in something that can't lose directionally. And then it's real easy for the story. I mean, you can just point to anything, right? Like, I'm trying to think of something that's pulled back for no. You know when a stock is ran and it just kind of like they high point it. Twitter's good at
Yeah.
that. Like, here's the top. I'm gonna finally buy some, and it just kind of naturally leaks out for a while. Spy, or that play I'm talking about, is real hard to sell a story on because of,
Yeah.
it's an individual name. You actually got to find something that relates. Spy, you can just say, oh, well, they killed some chickens in Idaho. I don't, you can just say anything, and it's going to relate to the overall market. So it's an easy environment to sound smart in with Spy, and sell it, and for lack of better terms, sell a story.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that the option volume thing. I mean, the you can buy and sell at the ask, and you can set stops that will actually fill. So in that respect, it's better than.
You can hide your bids too. You know what I mean? Like, you know how, so you've
Oh yeah.
seen it. You've seen people get pulled out and called out on that, where they're like, I bought 100 of these, and someone goes in the tape and like, there hasn't even been 100 sold today. What the fuck are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not
So
getting that
there's
on Spy. Like, you're not fine. You're not gonna go dig someone's bid out on Spy.
like, oh, I alerted 100% move, and it's an $8 to $16 contract. That that's pretty common too. And then I think also, talk about trading in the first 30 minutes. I mean, so many of these guys pile their whole account into open that they're trading $40 contracts at the end of the day because that's what they have left, and that's that's a pretty common thing too. And I not to preach too much about those guys or whatever, but it's just so different what we do compared to that. In my day job, I would say, like, I don't know, it's like studying a medieval manuscript and its whole history and all the scholarship on it and all of that is different than eating the turkey leg at the medieval fair. Even though medieval fair probably a little more fun, it's not as rigorous or professional as actually studying real history and all of that. It takes more time, it's more difficult, all of that, but make a better living doing it, I guess, than following the medieval fair around. So the casino, there is a casino going on. We pay attention to it, we see it. I hop in there once in a while, but there's a much better way to do this, and these are going to be the conditions that really do wash a lot of people out, and they'll just give up on trading. I guess the problem I see with people is people who don't have a day job or haven't built any other kind of skills. They're just rotating between just gambling ventures basically and influencing, and they're just in this loop of that. So just it's pretty bleak, what I see. I mean, honestly, it kind of depresses me sometimes to see how people are living and acting within this space. But we do something much different.
Yeah, there's a dude that posts, and he looks like he does okay, but I mean, I don't um, fact check or audit them, so. But he looks like he does okay. But he just posts shit like, 10-minute, 20 EMA, VWAP breakout, 30-minute orb low, break and base on resistance, 200 EMA cross and retest. That's a setup. So you just trade that. Like that's just when that happens. Okay, bud. All right. You might be able to go, you know, 5 out of 5 or 6 and 4 on 10 trades, right? And if you're
Yeah.
good with your stops and scaling in and out and stuff, you could still be a profitable trader. But that's a fucking nightmare. I'm gonna tell you that right
Right.
now. I did that
Yeah.
last week. That was my last week. Get going closer to 500 on trades or buying stuff, and oh crap, I'm gonna definitely get this lower level if it consolidates. That sucks. I'd much rather go 8 and 2 out of 10. I'm just telling you, and take 10-5% on those trades. And then let the runners run and stop, and do all the little things we talk about. That's much more better for my mental. And
Yeah.
that may just be me. And um, if I was starting and I thought that's how trading was, gambling or a crapshoot, I probably wouldn't trade. I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't trade. I just wouldn't. I'd buy property, something like that. Um,
Right.
but you can be highly successful if you're patient and you have a plan. I forgot what we talked about. I think Tesla we talked about earlier. Market Monk just said 500. You see me on my screen when I had it up. It was 488. He's talking 280. We just hit 220. You should have a plan somewhere between that 280 and 220. Probably grab a piece. I mean,
Right.
two,
Yeah.
two,
Exactly. Yeah.
250. I mean, 250 with 200 on the bottom. All right, that's $50 down. Well, he's $500 up. That's way more than 3 to 1. 250 to 500 sounds like a 100% trade to me. I don't know, but you make a plan and you wait. You just make a plan and you fucking wait. And okay, well, it didn't come back down ever. All right, well, you should have more fucking plans than just one. And some of those are going to
Right.
come to you, and you're going to have to put them in action. And it's not 10-minute chart 200 or breakout starting over every day. Put the whole fucking account in it. It's not. And it's like you say, what we do is way different. It's not even the fucking same ballpark. We're not out there trying to sell subs. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna make a comment when we get to Spy about how again I could go cap things I said last week, make a shiny video, and people would eat it up. I'd rather golf. I'd rather go work on my
Yeah.
chipping. You know what I mean? I really would. So.
Yeah. Well, and the phrase "shut up and buy." When we say that about a stock, like it's actually it doesn't seem like it's in great shape. It's been selling off. It's like yes, it's
Yeah.
been selling off. That's why you want to start buying it because
the the
um,
best example I have of that recently is we can just compare AMD and Nvidia, and I give you a ton of credit because the guy that I started working with used to go, yeah, it looks good, I like it, and you just couldn't get a feel on it. You just really
right.
couldn't. Like there's just no emotion, straight face, you know. Yeah, 95p. And you're like, well, what? You want to give me something else? And now you're like, I mean, you were months in advance. When this goes below 100, around 95 or so, I am buying. Like you were just
Yeah.
screaming your plan, and then on the inverse, AMD, you're like, oh, what do you think, Unc? And I'm like, don't touch this goddamn thing until like $70. I don't care. I
Yeah.
don't care that we are, 40% down here in the last 2 months. It's not going back to 200. Just let it die out, and that just is kind of shows how no one else is doing that, P. No one else is doing that, and it's so far in advance that everyone should be getting a piece of it. At least the better fit. I mean, I don't even want to say one a quarter because we could talk Redfin. It's more like, there's a basket that we kind of stay on, and that comes to fruition every quarter. And
Yeah, I mean, it just yeah, that's where use the work comes in, and then we got some people in the room that they'll a stock will kind of come back around and they're ready. They trade that name all the time, and the use is a
you
good.
saw that say you see Pele in the U's this week.
Yeah,
he,
yeah,
he
yeah. Right.
said I went and looked for the post where he said he was oversized because I wanted to cap that and his
Yeah,
testimonial page and go a little oversized Pele. Jesus
yeah.
fucking Christ! But yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah, and I think I think that's definitely the way to do it, like to use the work and then build your own work and plan on top of it, and and just have your 4 to 7 stocks, because we do have a lot that
yeah,
that come back around, and then I think
yeah. You
it's
can
good
miss
to
you can misuse. Sorry, P, but you can misuse us. Just want to plant this in your head
yeah
real quick by
yeah
by jumping around. By
yeah.
constantly jumping around, by washing your whole plate off every Sunday and starting over, you can misuse us.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Because and I try to give people a little bit of a heads up that hey, I think in a couple weeks or a couple months, this sector is looking like it's gonna go. And when my reads like that happen because there's usually gotten a lot better at reading open interest as opposed to just buyers. And I can see there's some open interest that kind of needs to play out, and then I think I kind of anticipate they're going to make a move on that, and then they either do or they don't. But I'm getting a little better at seeing how that's going to play out, as options expire, roll, whatever. So then when people see that, like, hey, I'm in that sector, or I've been looking at it, I'm looking to add, maybe I'll add more here. And you start your gradual scale in, instead of just trying to catch the bottom on something. And the way that I see a lot of those swings pay off, I mean, it got me more into that kind of trading too. So it's definitely something I try to do is just figure out what the roadmap is likely to look like, and that's difficult in this 3-2 market. But again, it kind of comes down to sectors and why they're so important. Um, and on that note, I mean, you want me to get into some boring stuff?
Yeah, let me drop one thing before we get there. Just because send a little subliminal message to you, because I love what you said there. But I'm just gonna. You don't have to answer or elaborate on it. But who won the race, P? The tortoise or the hare?
Yeah, right.
All right, let's get into some boring stuff.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I teach classical mythology. That actually comes up in that,
I'm sure. I
fables and all that.
knew you'd appreciate
So
that.
yeah, yeah, right. All right, so I wanted to lead with copper, because
Copper.
it busted out of this little consolidation pretty nicely on Friday, and so you have copper surging, you have market doing its thing, and you have bonds being all funky and whatever. I think like copper, demand for copper is just something that's brewing, and when the U.S. puts their chips in on this and gets the infrastructure spending and whatever, you get an actual China deal, and Trump can turn his attention to something else. I think you're going to see copper us through 5 and stay there, and do like a 5 to 7 um, move. And the so what given that, I think what you would look for in those conditions is uh, copper and aluminum stocks that we trade. You look for your bad days. You look for you sell some of the steel stock that took off, like X did. and then you look to Cleveland Cliffs, and you build there, because a lot of the metals, the basic material stocks, are lagging a bit compared to the strength of this copper chart. So that's where my flow reads are at as far as that goes.
Yeah, and I like them for a like a short term swing trade with reasonable expectations.
Yeah,
Your Cleveland, like you said, and then I pulled up Southern Copper. That's $100 stock. Um, but I'm not holding on to. I'm not doing more than rinse and repeating these until there's a use out there. And the same with
yeah.
aluminum, but I do think they're all again just in a spot that's probably oversold on Cleveland Cliffs for sure, just oversold. Um, so a good short term swing trade here, like a 6 to 9 on that guy.
Yeah, right. I think I'm thinking like 15 to 30%, something like that
Yeah,
on that
yeah.
one. Yeah.
And then I mean you're in a good spot too, getting to familiar with some of those charts for when some kind of infrastructure bill, if that ever gets passed, to be on those. I just think we're still like that's 2026 if we're lucky.
Yes, and if you just absolutely have to have options on those, um, it's regardless of what my flow read says. The flow read is going to be out of the money things. There isn't a reason to do anything other than an in the money leap. Because you, one of the characteristics of this sector is that they tend to just kind of grind, and and you can avoid a lot of the decay if you're already in the money and it's got over a year of time left on it. And then when you do get that a 15% move is a 50% move in that leap, and then that's kind of what you're after. The reason you buy those is you don't have to as much of your account in to the trade, or if you have a smaller account, like those can work. But I wouldn't buy a lot of them, and I definitely would get that intrinsic value in the contract to help prop it up as well.
Perfect.
All right, so then
There we go.
gold.
That's
Um,
that's in the mix.
this you know working on 3,400 again. There isn't certainly wouldn't short this, and I think you can still kind of look for some miners that are lagging. But I think you have to pick and choose. I mean, I think you want to be very strategic about which miners and what their chart looks like. But it's still a very bullish setup overall, and it's not the time to enter um, you know calls on the gold ETF. You had that opportunity um, back when before the start of the year when we were talking about this, but yeah, still very strong setup to me. Still a lot of countries buying up gold, and it's very much in the news as well.
Yeah, best entry will be that pullback you talk about on the daily levels.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Silver, more of an entry opportunity in silver, I think. Best spot is when it's under 32, but 32 to 36 move. I think you still got some time for that, and breakout towards 40 is still kind of what I see here.
I think it's the one or the one left. I don't know how you want to
Yeah,
say that.
right.
Yeah, we're on the names.
Uranium, be caught at the bottom here. I was talking, if you look at, you're going to get these goofy candles because of the way that the futures work with this one, but no wicks. It's just kind of like, this is it. Here you go. It just, it comes out. There's not a lot of back and forth on the pricing here, but yeah, we caught it down here in the low 60s, mid 60s, and just, kind of took off. Lots of room above, but it's still, they're not breaking ground and firing up a lot of reactors. It's still just about plans and ideas. And so while it's in that phase of plans and ideas and things like that, the uranium stocks that don't own any reactors, that just have it as a concept, uh, can have a ton of range to the upside and do very well. Your Oklos and things like that. But as far as I definitely think you take profit on those pretty quickly, whereas U's and UEC and DCJ and ones like that can have more of a sustained retrace towards their highs as we move through this.
The two trades will help you out. Take the thought out of it. That usually works. No, everything I seen over the weekend or since the news was that um, China's in the best shape. It'd still take them 5 years to make a new one anyway. If you just we're gonna have
Yeah.
build a new one tomorrow, and Europe has the best setup to turn things back on. They have the most obviously there if they're gonna just go that route. So um, again, it's that short term pop and fade we talked about. Like the rubber hitting the road on that just isn't going to happen for most places.
Yeah.
So I pay attention to the ones that already have business, or like you're saying, the ones that just produce the uranium.
Yep. Absolutely. And then
Yeah, here we go.
natural gas, still just kind of parked in this. I mean, it's almost like too easy. It's like high or low is three, low was two, and now it's three. Um, so next high is probably five, or maybe 450 again. But yeah, still love this. Like the combo names. Don't like leveraged ETFs because shares decay. We haven't talked a lot about that, but that were people complaining about that. They've been getting in this Nvidia leveraged ETF, and he's
Oh
like,
yeah, no.
yeah, the price is the same as it was when I bought it. Why am I down on this? And it's like they're piling into that, not realizing that you get decay even within shares on because that leverage is built into it. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, be careful with those. But yeah,
He means
there's
by be
combo names.
careful. He means don't trade them.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I mean,
Sorry.
there was a trade. It was cold, but that was when natural gas was around $9, and it was cold leaps, which is the bearish ETF. And you can see what natural gas did there. But look at the kind of move I needed to see to be interested in those. It was actually 9 to 6, and then there was a secondary one that happened there. But yeah, a $3 move. So I don't see in just an imminent 50 to 100% move in natural gas. It's more likely to just park in this range.
I'm
But
I'm
we're at a good spot to accumulate
I'm
for.
okay with boil, cold, gush, drip. Those ones are okay. I'm not okay with the Tesla, coin, Nvidia leveraged ETFs. Like
Oh yeah,
don't mess with
MSR. Yeah,
those. Yeah, don't mess with those.
yeah, yeah. um. Okay, so let's see. Then oil. Let's talk oil for a second. Um,
60.
Oil's fine. I mean, it's kind of nothing. Nothing to see here as far as futures want to park here. Oil stocks can do just fine. You don't need oil to go to 90 or Oxys and Devons and ones like that to um, be in a manageable swing. I just like to have position at a good entry for when oil does do some kind of significant turnaround. And I think realistically, mid 70s is what I would look at for
Sure.
pop on oil. But it needs a reason, and it could be many things. But do definitely like to scale into those around here.
I think they're doing a good job keeping it down, and just because it affects everything else so
Yeah.
much, it's good for it. The lower oil prices is good for everybody,
Yep.
all the way to the consumer. Um, so I think that's something they have to if there's something they have to manipulate and control or really be, behind the doors, stern, making phone calls about it's the price of oil. So I think it continues to stay low. Um, Outside of one of them events, you get a canal blocked or some fire somewhere, you might have a different story. But I think from a political standpoint, they want to keep it down here, and they've done a great job. They really have done a great job keeping it down here.
Yeah, absolutely. And about China for a minute. We saw some decent moves on some Chinese names, and some of them, like Bidu, got out after earnings. I wasn't even managing it. I just set a stop, and it hit it, and then I scalped a put because it just, you know, basically it went up like 7%, and then ended the day red. That happens with Chinese stocks, China sizing. That's where that term comes from. But yeah, Hang Seng, very much popped to 30,000 on, like you get a deal closed, U.S. and China, regardless of what the percentages are. Certainty of some kind of deal that has some staying power, I think could definitely move these, but you definitely just have to be picky with the Chinese stocks and know what you're in. But I do kind of like this chart, to be honest.
Yeah, I got a couple last
Pop.
five. Couple last five to be honest. This
Yeah.
week. Yeah, and it's a good. China's the next of what I kind of talked about with Tesla. I think it's a deal that will get done, and um, just because of where the charts are, the relief will be good enough to kind of cause a little rally in a lot of names. Even some companies that you wouldn't think of, um, just because of how they do business with China.
Yeah,
One
absolutely.
that I'm not going to trade that I'll throw out there, just because I'm not going to trade it, is Mattel. I mean, that's a great example of someone that's probably going to do really good when the China deal comes out because it'll give some clarity to them. I got another toy company I'm messing with though.
I want to throw something at you real quick. India, and I mean, I think we're kind of almost to a point where um, you've been able to trade this Indian ETF for a long time, but where a point at which there's actual American stocks or even Indian stocks that get listed here, um, where you see this big influx of that, and India is positioned to have one of the better trade relationships with the U.S. Basically because they're not China and they have the manufacturing capability that approaches what China can do, and so it's you have companies doing more with them. It's a developing nation that is actually developing instead of just being called that as a category. So I'm not exactly ready to talk about India in a lot of detail here, but I will say that this particular chart very likely punches through all-time highs within this Trump administration and goes much further, like $80 or something. So I would keep the BRICS, learn what the letters mean within BRICS, and then some of the uh, complement like nations, Colombia and places like that. I would expect for me to be talking a lot about that over the next 18 months or so.
It's the only negative that's on my plate for them that I want to watch or kind of be mindful of because the people that do good off the Indian news, I think it's where their pullbacks will come over that range and maybe even a longer range than you're talking about. Is quality. They definitely have the cheap labor. Um, it took China a while to figure out quality. I mean, when you're a '90s kid, you remember all the jokes about the cheap China crap. A lot of stuff we get nowadays, it's not it's cheap, but it's not. It's well made. It works. In my childhood, shit used to just fall apart. Like it just wouldn't. You couldn't. They're missing pieces out of the box and stuff like that. And if India doesn't have that, learning curve. They could take a big chunk, um, but that's yet to be seen. So I'm kind of other than that, they got the cheap labor. They got a good location as far as distribution to the world. Probably better than China, to be honest. And they definitely have the manpower. So um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Radar. All right, so that's it for the
What about the
boring
one?
stuff.
What?
Um,
What?
what did we skip? Oh, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You want to talk Bitcoin?
Yeah. Come on.
Okay. All right, we'll do that.
A little pullback,
Okay,
110 top,
so
110 top,
the
little pullback. What you got over there?
yeah, little pullback, mid 90s probably, something like that. 96, 98 is kind of what I see. I mean, the 100 psych, we'll sort of see about that. Or the other thing that the other scenario is everybody assumes we get the 100 psych and then we don't, 102 or thereabouts. But yeah, I'm just very much looking at the pivots on large caps. I'm more interested in MSTR and coin right now than I am the miners because I feel like I kind of had the entry on the miners. I will say though, caveat there is Riot and Mara. I think are going to be pretty easy to trade in these conditions. I just think I'm not interested in going back into BitDeer. I'm parked there where I want to be, but yeah, I think their pullback is going to outpace what Bitcoin is doing, and then their retrace will be fast. That's kind of my read on the crypto stuff right now.
Nice. Yeah, no, we got that trade. We talked about that. Probably got more. That was an easy window. We always talk about that. Don't bump your head on the window when you're robbing Wall Street. Well, that Bitcoin trade was easy. Still sticking to
What's
what I.
your
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish. What were you gonna say?
Oh, yeah. What's your upside on Bitcoin?
Well, it's all-time high chart, P. So I don't really have a. I mean, I just pull a number out of my ass for you. The 120 makes sense though.
Yeah, do that.
Just
120.
120.
Yeah.
120 makes sense.
120 to 150.
Yeah, I don't know.
150
I'm
and
like 135.
unicorns.
135. I don't
All
see the
right.
150 is a lot. I don't see another 50% move in Bitcoin. I'm gonna go back to what I said last week is what I think is best, and that's that consolidation. You said 95 last week. I said around 100. You said 95. I said that would even be better. But I'm still there. 95, 102 is what you gave me this week. Consolidation there is best. I mean, we need a month or two there. We really do. I've watched this show the whole way, and that's always what's best for Bitcoin, whether it's after a run or it's after a big pullback, is a couple months of just tight consolidation. And then the gas comes into it and it does make the move out of the range. I don't like
Well,
this. Go ahead.
gold has a Bitcoin, you
Yeah.
know, and we're 6 months in, and Bitcoin's just now back to all time high. So, so to go, if it did pop to, where 150s relevant, it's a kind of a disastrous wick, and then it comes back to 100. Like that's the kind of thing that, like something that, some kind of news that isn't going to end up sustaining itself. I'm curious though too. The U.S. stablecoin idea is getting a little bit more momentum, and I'm wondering how that's going to play out as far as Bitcoin goes.
Well, we're turning from. I don't fucking follow it much, but you're reading news and there's a story here and there, but or you're watching news and they talk about it for 5 minutes. But from what I'm picking up is they're trying to turn Tether into bad, whatever that is, whatever the Tether thing is, because it's not American, and it's a go between for them, something with Tether. They want it to just be through like the banks and have it just off the dollar. Um, so it's 100% American. Something
Right. So
that's been the FUD on the street that I've been hearing.
for a lot of the crypto brokerages, Tether's the default thing. It's like when you sell your Bitcoin, it's in Tether, which you then is just 1-to-1 with the dollar, and you then can move it back over. But yeah, but Tether has risk to it, and sort of shady accounting practices, and all the things you associate with crypto um, overall.
I just
So
take it
it
as
makes
the
sense
right
that.
people don't control it. That's how I took it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I totally think that. Yeah, I think that that's it. I mean, people have been looking for Tether to blow up for a very long time, and it probably,
Will,
is the people who would benefit from that happening.
yeah, probably
Yep.
will then. That's how that works.
Oh right, yeah, yeah, right, yeah.
They'll find weapons of mass destruction
Um,
over there. Sorry.
right, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I got a starting point here.
All right.
While you pull that up. So a few
Okay.
weeks ago, like two again, if I was this is where the if I was just worried about content and getting 100, 200 subs or something every quarter, I would make content. And a few weeks ago, I said, you know, the SPY can be at 555 and pull back 2% and 555 and you think the world's collapsing, and SPY can run up 4% and be at 555 and you think we're in a bullish market. Well, we literally just seen that since then with this 580. Like we came out of a session, I think it might have been that same session, saying, bro, they're active at 580, but that's a mile away, and we woke up at 580. And you fast forward 1 week, 1 week we fast forward, and we're pulling back to 580 on Friday, and it feels like a bearish market all of a sudden. And you can't get caught up in that wash. That's why it's good to have kind of a pivot, equilibrium, where we should be, what schedule we should be on, because you're seeing it play out right now. And if you just change your opinion every day because of not having an overall thesis, getting wrecked. 580 healthy right now. It's kind of another great high or low, really short term in my opinion. We just need those. I'm gonna stick with my number because I keep saying it, but we just need those 620s to creep back in. Um, uh, we've been here long enough to know before market makers need time to set up. They can't get their stuff done in a week. It takes them a couple weeks to get their positioning right before moves. Um, so I expect some more consolidation, especially on SPY, especially on a short week. But this market is healthy still. It's just are we in a range? Yes. Is that range big? Yes. Is that range tradable? Yes. Can you trade a 1 minute chart? No.
The clearest picture of what they're doing. So for a while now, it was September 535 and it was June 580. Like those were the two contracts that kind of defined the range. And now they're selling out of the September 535, and now you have October 1 month later, $15 higher, 550p is the relevant put contract to me. It's climbed up in open interest largely as things have just fallen off. So rather than, like, you can see like 58 volume on Friday, that's absolutely nothing for SPY. But again, I talked about reading the open interest, and so to me, they're already parked in this one. Now they're gonna like work through it, and to the upside, I don't have 620s. It's 600 for June. So I mean, those numbers are pretty simple. 550 to 600 is kind of the
Playing
what they're
field.
working with,
Yeah.
and then we'll see what comes up above 600 as we close out May next week. And if the 600C stays relevant, then I think you'll start to see, July 620 or something like that start to be a factor. But yeah, I think they're moving the floor up from 535 to 550 as far as that
Yeah.
goes.
Um, a little off topic, but I think it's relevant. If you're in our room and you're an options trader, not necessarily even a SPY trader, but just an options like day trader, short term trader, I would pay attention to how good you do regularly and how good you do when Goose is active. Because if you're getting killed when Goose is active, I would use that as an indicator of you can't trade consolidation. Because Goose can trade consolidation like no one I've ever seen in my life. And
Right.
There might be something there. So if you're getting killed and you normally don't get killed, I would, and Goose is trading, I would use that as an indicator to it's a we're stuck in the box, so to speak.
Right. Right.
Which it feels like. I mean, it feels like that's where we're going on this chart. Like we're just gonna have. You say the story all the time, but you're gonna get a pop pre-market, and you're gonna bleed out and end up where you started, and you're gonna go both ways like that for 3 days and be flat and just kind of be where we are for a while.
Totally, totally with you on that. And I mean the the amount of time they have on this too. The To go from September to October, you can see that they want 4 or 5 months of time for this to play out. And best case scenario is that they're looking at 550 um, as a hedge rather than something they're just gonna constantly keep rolling down. But the when when we did have the whole Liberation Day thing, um, and the contracts at the time that were around that I kept seeing, but I just couldn't. I had some disbelief about, is this really, are they serious here? There was 480, and then there was 440. Now 440, like obviously we didn't even approach that. However, those contracts they were able to get out of those. Those were hedges they had from a long time ago, and so then 520 became kind of the thing, and we've gradually, it was 535 and now it's 550. So the put floor keeps going up as and that's good news if you're looking for the market to hit some kind of sustained bullish uptrend, punch through 620, yada yada.
They get
So
out of those
yeah,
550. Can they get out of those 550s at 570s? Is that a good way to look at that?
yeah, yeah, definitely,
Okay,
absolutely.
because 570s is right around the 50 on the weekly, and that's. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not out of a test of that.
Yeah, and they won't get they won't get fully out of it. But they'll and then the question is if they want to roll, if they want to roll it. I don't think that a bleed out to under 570, or even a bad day under five, like to get under 570, would cause a dramatic move in those contracts. They'll peel off some, sell to close, probably add to that 600 spy, or actually probably the 580. If this 580 spy contract for June dips to like $800 or something, I think they would average back into it at
Perfect.
that point.
Perfect. Awesome. Sounds good, sir. You ready to get to work over there?
Yeah, I'll grab a coffee and we'll be good to go.
Perfect. Like and subscribe, people. Link somewhere.